So we'll start off by saying that today is Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. My name is Alex Fisher, and I will be the interviewer for this Veteran Voices project. Today, I have World War II veteran, New York Police Department Sergeant retired, Osceola Fletcher. Mr. Fletcher, how are you?
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Mr. Fletcher, did you grow up in New York? Have you always lived in New York, grew up in New York?
Yep, I always did.
How's the city changed since then?
The city has changed with its population, with its type of people who have populated it. When I first realized or started counting, if I ever did, the city was all white, except uptown was largely all black. And I saw some people whenever I was around town who were other colors working, but I never saw anybody downtown but white people as a rule. That's the way I took it in. And there was no one my age and size palling out with me.
And where did you grow up? Which part of the city?
Well, that would be downtown. That would be around the hotels. And when I was a little fellow, I remember being with my mother, and I remember then all other people were white unless we were in Harlem. Can you understand that?
Yes. So how was the 1930s jazz scene? Was that a big change? Is that one of the big changes that brought on to diversity in the city?
Well, yeah. First of all, my mother was wickedly drunk very often, and she knew other people who were that way. And we used to move around Harlem. We never hardly left there unless she was working, and she would work going uptown, that is, to the Bronx. And she did a lot of work for people in the Bronx, but it was manual labor, like cleaning windows and cleaning houses and furniture. When she was paid, and I would come back down. I was a little fellow then, and I must have been a pest. But she always had to watch me because I might do something wrong or break something. But when things did go wrong, they went wrong drastically, and she had to leave me home. And leaving me home became chaotic because one day the house caught fire, and I wondered why, but I knew why, because I used to see where she put matches in order to smoke or do light cooking, and that's that. So that's as far as I go about being a little fellow, because one day a house caught on fire, and the fireman took me in, and from that day on, I never lived with her again, although I lived and saw her again and sat with her again. But I'm saying I was taken up as a foster kid after the fire. The fireman took me in, and I got to be a foster kid. And then after being a foster kid, I never was anything else but a foster kid right now. So anyhow, during the 20s, I was enlivened by, the way grown people behaved. I knew their music. Or I thought, all music was theirs. And let's see. The music then, it interested me. But when my mother danced, she danced for me. And when she danced, I enjoyed it. We had a dog who used to run up and down in the house when my mother danced. But that was the music she remembered. And I remembered, but I had no dancing to do. But we had a record player, a little record player, and we had discs. Some of them are huge, and we played music from there. But a lot of times we would be passing stores, or whenever we went to the movies, we would get the sound of music played by the piano player or the record player in the movie. And all movies, whenever I went into the movie house, was very loud. People were talking like crazy. They might have been yelling, eating, anything. But all kinds of noise was going on in the movie house. And they were small rooms that we went to be entertained. Small rooms that set people to moving around. And that's the way it was. in the 20s. In the 30s now, well, I was being cared for, and I didn't have much other type of from other people, and I had to stay with them and eat with them, and that's the way that went. So,
But the 30s was the big jazz era, no? With Benny
yeah, well,
Goodman and King Oliver. That was the big time for the 30s, especially
well,
in the city.
yeah, it was, but I was not an intellectual. I was a young boy. I had to watch other people enjoy themselves. I saw them dancing. I could peek in a door of a place where music was coming from. People would dance and band, and yeah, I remember those days. But then I'm getting older. I'm getting to be 12, 13. Next thing you know, I'm 15, and I had made money while being poor as a car washer and window washer too, like my mother. And but I was not with her because I was staying in a place that was being paid for by somebody for me to sleep there. So, but I went to school. Going to school was a hard thing because I didn't have clothing to look, worthwhile like other kids. My clothing was tough and no good to look at. But as we got into say, after 1936, I'm beginning to run with other people who are happy after dark or happy after they finish shining shoes in the street, which I did, or clean the cars, or whatever had to be done. But anyhow, got to be 15, 16. I'm finding girls that interest me, but we're not doing anything. But I'm walking with them. Well, I go around and see their brothers and see them. And then after a while, with the work I'm doing, I found myself discharged from the state protection, or whatever you call it, being out there on the street because I'm now 18. By the time I was 16, I had spoken to women, girls. I've gone to school with them, not the best schooling, but while I was in school, I was interested, like mad, terribly interested. But I had no place to put my books and papers. So I used to put them in places where I could maybe save something if I had a place to stay. Or I was with other kids who were staying where I was staying. We stayed together. There'd be sometimes 3 or 4 of us living in the same place where they too were being paid by somebody to take care of us then. So I was a ward of the state, like I say, until 18. I'm now trying to go to where people get happy, real happy. And so I'm going to nightclubs at nighttime, shining shoes, and delivering packages. And that's during the night. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I remember for a couple of years, I got older. I quit the real rough stuff where I could only eat beans and beans. That's all I could ever eat. And sometimes other food if I had the money, but usually beans and bread and milk like that.
Now, what do you remember? What it cost you?
Yeah, 15 cents, 10 cents, 5 cents. But there was a guy at Father Divine. I could go sit there and eat food for nothing. I was always looking to where I could get things free. And sometimes I used to pass a hotel back door, and the guy said, "Hey, kid, come here. Empty this pail for me in the gutter, because I don't have time to do." Well, okay. Then he would feed me and give me or tell me to come back. So the next thing you knew, I graduated junior high school, but they took me out of the fast class. I had been in a rapid advance in high school, but they kicked me out because I couldn't keep the pace. I didn't have the clothing, and I had no parents to come to school for me and back me up on what the books I needed. Next thing you know, I had graduated vocational high school, and because that was the thing of the day. Everybody had to learn to work. So I went to the vocational high school.
What did you concentrate on there? So was there different vocational subjects, or was it just like one specific?
There were subjects like science, but it was, very basic, but science, English, and mathematics. But I wasn't allowed to go to an academic high school. They made me go to this school that I was in, and I was the only black kid in the machine shop area. So I learned to be a machinist, and I did pretty good. And when I came out as a machinist, I couldn't get any work because they didn't hire, unwhite people. So even though it was wartime now, Hitler's crawling in. So I used to work at night in a Chinese restaurant. But sometimes the Chinese restaurant work it too damn hard. When we get my fingers cut up, and I had no rest at all. In a Chinese restaurant, you had to work 10, 12 hours a day, maybe more. So all that time is being used, and I quit.
So what led you to the military, to the army? Since this was wartime?
Oh, well, in doing that, being in a school, I got an address to live in Jamaica, but I was really living in several places, But this one address would give me all the mail that I got from the school. So I had to take, like I say, be a machinist, which I didn't mind because some of the other kids wanted to be machinists and they couldn't. But most of the black kids are getting courses in auto mechanics and fixing roads and fixing some basic woodwork stuff. But the white kids, they were doing bookmaking, airplane mechanics, the higher topics. And by the time I finished, the deed had been done, and I'm out here with no job. But then I saw with all these people moving around Fifth Avenue and whatnot, I got a job working in a haberdashery as a package clerk, but I was really a delivery boy. People would come into the store and buy different garments, different types of shirts, ties, and the best, because Fifth Avenue shops had the best. And I had to deliver them sometimes to hotels, but mostly my money came from going to private residences. So the residence there might be Artie Shaw, it might be even somebody high class. Well, anyhow.
So with all of these jobs that you held, from Chinese restaurants to being a machinist to now being a package clerk, was the next step the military? Was that something that you wanted to do, or was it something that you just got in the mail?
I got a draft card because I got this address. If you were a certain age and you were male, you had to have a draft card to walk the streets. And so that's it. I got my draft card, and I used to be around all these glorious people. Like they were Hollywood stars and movie stars and all that. But I got drafted, see, and doing the drafting, I had thought myself big enough to take the test for college, and I did. And I passed at City College, but I didn't pass high enough. So I got the card. But anyhow, I was allowed to go there. I couldn't matriculate fully. So there was a special name for type like me. During that time, I'm taking girls out to see shows and plays and whatnot. And they didn't realize how broke I was. But they would all know that I would not take them out unless I had $8 or $10 to spend it with them. I wouldn't, look for a taxi cab or anything else like that. We walk to the movies and we walk to the nightclub, and that's the way it went. Okay. So anyhow, the war came. I was drafted out of the classroom. When I was drafted out of the classroom, segregation was there too. When I went down to Whitehall Street, I was given my clothes, and that's where the segregation began. Because the white guys had to go to this side and get their uniform, and I had to go to the other side to get my uniform. And from there,
Now, is this still in New York?
yeah, this is New
Okay.
York, and I'm in New York, and I was drafted, and they put me in Fort Dix, and after I hit Fort Dix, we did, you know about Fort Dix. You had
Yeah.
some fun, but you didn't have off on, and so I had to go into training there as a soldier, and I learned to talk as a soldier. I learned to take orders and learn what the orders were because I didn't understand the lingo of a soldier anyhow. But I did. And then I was transferred again. We had to go to Fort Dix to move down to where I could learn to be a real soldier, the way they said it. So I was shipped down to New Orleans. And then I was knocking around New Orleans down to Mississippi and Georgia, and that was it. I had to learn from that. And we had riots where ever people, sometimes we went to town and we saw, things we wanted to buy, places we wanted to sail. We bought drinks here and there, but you couldn't ride all the trolley cars because you had to ride in the back in the bus or whatever. You had to get in the back all the time. So that was it.
So, Mr. Fletcher, would you say that at those times, coming from New York City and moving down towards the South, was life more difficult in the South than it was up north?
Oh, yeah. Much tougher down south because down south, they were using guns and clubs for you to obey. And you would always have cops out there in the street. But the cops, if we were soldiers, cops didn't bother with us. The MPs got us all the time. It was crazy. I got one morning, I had to show the professor at City College that my draft card number was called, and I had to go into the Army. And so he told the class that, and they did applaud me. I said, okay, boy, go get him. And then I went south. And down south, we were messed up. That's the way it went until I got into the Army.
I have one more question, Mr. Fletcher, since we're already on the draft card topic. So unlike today, when we go to join the military, I was in the military, but we got to pick our professions and whatever we wanted to do in the military at the time. With the draft card, were you given an opportunity to take the ASVAB or a test to see where you'd be placed? Would it rather be infantry or culinary or anything like that?
Yep. Yeah. I took the test. I took the test for, how do you say it now?
The aptitude test?
Applicant, yeah, the applicant for, and I got a job as, I got appointed to a machinist. After I was, what's that name for the people who have to work with machinery in the Army? We got to fix the tanks and we got to fix the planes and we got
The mechanics.
yeah, but they call it, there's a special name for that. And I passed the test, and they gave me, right away, they gave me the 5 stripes.
Was there a lot of other Black service members in the same job, or were you like in the vocational school where you were one of the only ones that passed it?
I was the only Black guy in who had been called. I had to go for training. In other words, since I had passed the octogenarian, German, oh gosh, I'm forgetting it now. The words they use, but I was. They looked at me. They told me to come in so I could be sent to camp. They evidently needed some guys who would know how to order guys to make tractors or whatever, planes, or when needed, the parts that they needed to be used. And I would be very valuable. But they came and they looked at me. I said, what the hell? Somebody made a mistake here. And so they transferred me out. And the next thing you know, I was in the port battalion. You commandeered and packed and emptied, and ships and submarines and support battalion.
So now you are more of a transportation than fixing? You're doing the transporting now?
That Transportation Corps, that's what they call it. Transportation Corps. And I knew right then I would never be an officer, because if you were in the Corps, you couldn't get another title, because in order to be an officer, you had to have infantry attached to your name. And none of that would I be getting. So I would be...
Were you willing to go into the infantry corps if given the chance?
Oh, yeah. In
Now,
fact,
how long after did you, after you were drafted and completed your training, did they send you overseas?
right away, we were rioting in the streets down in Pennsylvania. After the nightclubs turned out, after the dance halls had closed, people out there on the street. We were, of course, late to get back to camp. So riots were going on because of that. And we couldn't.
These were riots because of the war, that soldiers were being shipped out there, and
No, because of the riot. The soldiers couldn't go home with the girls. No, you couldn't date and hit into the riots also because of the prostitutes. Loads of them. They would take you to their place if you whatever. But whatever it is, you miss the transportation going back to camp. You were stuck in town, and that's when the MPs got you. So I'm saying you wound up in trouble, physical trouble all the time, except those guys who didn't want to get in trouble and never left camp. But they still had to go overseas.
Where did you go overseas?
Oh, I was told that I would be given command of I would be given, I was busted, of course, when I left the place where I passed the test to be a 5-star. I mean, I would be a 5-stripe. I had left there. Now shipped to a place because I was late. I was busted all the way down from a 5-star. I mean, a 5-stripe sergeant down to 1-stripe soldier. So the PFC. So I didn't mind, because I didn't know what the hell and what could I do with the money they gave me anyhow. All I needed was rest. Give me some rest and a bed and oh, thank you, and give me the food. But then there wasn't much of that. So I'm saying I was drafted out of the city college.
This was World War II. Now,
Yeah.
this was what, 1943?
Yeah.
That this is all going on?
Yeah.
Now, when you got sent overseas, I know I read an article with you that you just received your Purple Heart about 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And can you tell me more about that experience, like when your boots on ground? Like I was telling your daughters, I visited Normandy. I was a paratrooper, and I went there for the reenactment. And to me, this is many decades later, I felt the presence of, like I can't even imagine what it was. Can you tell me how it was going over there? And were you on the beach? Were you?
Yep.
How did that all happen? That's you don't get very interested.
Yeah. When they shipped us across, it took them 53 days, to ship me and convoy of maybe 40, 45 other ships northwest in the water to Shepton Malay, Southern Ireland. And the Shepton Malay, by the way, is where that famous boat went down. The Titanic. The Titanic was built there, Shepton Malay, and but that was like 10 years before, and we're there now since then. But I'm saying we left Ireland, and we were in Ireland, Southern Ireland. We had to go across. We were not going to stay in Ireland because they couldn't get to Germany too fast. And to get to Germany, you had to get to England first. So we went to England, across the channel. It's just some 20 miles like that to the channel. And we got some of the bullets and all that stuff that the Germans threw at us. But we went to England, and they put us on across the whole estuary, and we practiced there. And when the day came
from England,
yeah, So
You
when they,
went to France, or did you?
yeah, we got
Okay.
the we went over there. Like Cecil B. DeMille would have been, because we couldn't go directly in the way we were moving. I mean, the products we were moving in, you couldn't go straight across the water because it might get bombed. The line itself might be. But I'm saying it was tough enough to carry or to take out. So we were in the water all the time. The first time we went into the water, the invasion was like 14, 15 days old.
And when you say invasion, you're talking about the Omaha Beach?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, there was Omaha or whatever. And then there was, with those names they gave them after, I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. So they changed it afterwards.
But the ones who had the toughest job were the Canadians. The Canadians had the toughest job because they had that big cliff to go in and get up. They get up and then get over. And everybody else is moving by plane. But they're not all this going on that we can't go. We had to stay on the boats. Every boat that came in, we had to unload it. And bullets flying all over the damn place, even after 14, 15 days. But I was with my outfit, which I don't think they got credit for coming in to the base.
Now, when you say you were on the boats most of the time, I'm presuming this was in between France and England, right? And that in like the English
No,
Channel.
this is between France and all right, yeah, France and England. But we had to use floats and newfangled boats to get our vehicles in, and they had to pull them out. See, so
Right.
when they had to pull them out, they had to be ready to go, and so they're down in the when we come up, you're coming up out of the surf into the beach. That part of the invasion geography is where we had to be. Further back was Normandy's town, where all the business was. We didn't come by the business, we didn't, like during the war, they dropped bombs. They want to hit.
I read that, at your time there when you were deployed, you got wounded 3 times.
Oh, listen, I was hurt more than 3 times, but I gotta say something to stop it all. First time I wouldn't know. There was an explosion in the water. It's according to the depth and the nearness of the bomb, of course. But the sand blows up. I mean, you get pushed and your joints go. So you don't have time to stop and bleed. You usually, for that, you got to keep going forward. And some of the guys are using your rifle as a spade to pull you into the beach, because if you're in the same thing. And of course, you didn't call during the day or during the night. But most of the action was anytime. Anytime you could scramble. But we didn't after a while. Out of nastiness, they called us the Slave Brigade, and we had to get the bombs, the bags of this, the cans of food, the boxes of shoes, whatever.
Yeah.
You had to get it on the boardwalk. There's no boardwalk there. We're way around from anything like a boardwalk. This is the beach. You got to get out of the water, damn it. We're coming up out of the bottom of the ship, and it's got to go down by the ropes. We got to pull it over by the ropes because everything can't go in wet.
Now, let me ask you, with the times that you were wounded, did you wounded and have to go back to the States, or did you return back to the States?
No going back to the States. No. You get, first of all, they don't use that nomenclature. See, we were injured or broke down or anything but wounded, because wounded was the word that would get us the infantry connotation. So they never said we get wounded. Even all sick reports that went back to the base or just for us, they hurt or broke down or some other damn synonym that said they're night white. That's what it is. So when they got all the paper together later on, they're just used to. I mean, some of the, like, say, like you got gonorrhea, you had to take the 5 shots to get rid of it. And the gonorrhea, some of the white guys, they got the gonorrhea, they got Purple Heart for being curing the gonorrhea. And that's not a bloody thing. You know what I'm saying? Because you could do anything if you got a hold of your papers at Fort Devens. So you got your own papers. Do what the hell you want to do with it, you know, and then hand them in. Oh, I couldn't know that. I didn't know that, you know, what the lingo was to talk to. I wouldn't take that chance and say, but it didn't. The other thing was, I'm beginning to get letters now from, they always say, if you come home, maybe you're going to be a cop. You say that. Well, I was a cop, you know, for after I got home.
Now,
But
was that something that you wanted to do, or is that something just happened when you got home and got out of the service? Did you want to continue being
well,
uniformed?
no, I didn't want to, but it happened because I already was in uniform and nobody had a job. So that's why especially colored guys, they didn't have any jobs and they couldn't, colored people didn't have jobs. That's it. So employment was a mess.
So let me ask you this: I remember when we spoke that you said that it was harder, being black down south. How was it being a cop now and being a police officer? Was it different than being in uniform down south, or how did you portray that being an officer after the war in New York City?
Well, that was like being in Hollywood, a policeman in New York City. Oh boy, you're living a life, That was it. But I couldn't bother with the police force would not take anybody who was injured. So I couldn't go in injured, even trying to pass the exam. If they saw marks on me or tattoos or what, they didn't have to take me. See, that's the way they operated in the police force then, especially, and the firemen, the same thing. I passed both exams, by the way. I passed the exam for when I went up there to Syracuse, where my people were. I had I passed the state trooper exam, but I didn't make the one crucial thing. I could not make the height. I had to be 5'10". I couldn't do it. See, so I was like 5'9.5". But 5'10" is what they wanted. So get the hell home, go home. See, that's the way that went. But listen, you live your life. That's the way they took it. You took it, and you didn't complain. You knew that what the hell was going to happen.
Yeah. So after you served in the NYPD, is that where you started and finished NYPD?
What happened with the NYPD? Well, first I did the 2 years, and then I did 24 years in the NYPD before I went to teach at boys' high school and others, girls' high first, and then boys' high. And then after that, what happened is that when I was a cop, I had to go before the judge with my prisoner, and I was somewhat lenient with people because I knew it was a crazy life. And there was a guy, the DA, who said he liked the way I operated. So he had just finished an election, and he got to be the DA. So the DA comes down to the school, and he calls for me. And he said, I want Ozzie Fletcher. So the school was up in arms. Oh, Jesus. God, that crazy soldier got arrested. I said, nope, you're going to work with him, or is he going to be a rat for them? Oh, cool, boy. So next thing you know, I'm working for the DA. I worked for the DA for 23 years, and that's that. And that was one of those jobs, to work for the district attorney of a Brooklyn borough.
Yeah, listen, that's definitely something that you never don't expect. Then there you are, and I appreciate you sharing your story with me, Mr. Fletcher. It's incredible. And for my last couple of questions, do you have, or would you like to say anything to future, present generations that are coming up now from New York that are contemplating joining the military or even the police force? Uh, what would you tell them, living the life that you lived and the way that life is going now? Is there anything that you would like to tell?
Today, my one thing is make friends. Always make friends if you can, because you got to have friends. And then, of course, after that, you got to have luck. You can't go along thinking you can do what the statistics say. You got to run up into the statistics sometime, and they don't always compare to your life. See, it's going to be that way when they get into space. They're going to have people living in space, and those people are not going to come back and live or learn, and others, when they get in space, may wonder, do you know, there are people, I think, not now, will come around and say, I want to live in space. I want to live here. As a matter of fact, I remember thinking many times, if they found diamonds in the moon, there are people who would go to the moon and pull that damn thing in. They would pull it out of the sky just so they could get rich. What are we going to pay them for a moon that isn't there anymore? But that's the way life will go. So I don't know myself. I'm going on I'm 99, so I'm going at the right time. I'm leaving here at the right time. It's crazy. Cockeyed.
Hey, and like I said, Mr. Fletcher, I appreciate you sharing this story. Thank you. It was definitely an experience that I will never forget, and I'm sure that everybody who's going to listen to this is not going to forget it either. Thank you for your service in the military and civil service in education. Thank you for expanding the minds of our youth. And thank you. I just appreciate everything that you've done, continue to do. And thank you for allowing me to interview for this interview.
Oh, you're too soft. There's nothing unusual about the life I led. There were many, 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 many guys who had to do the same thing that I did. They just didn't get a chance to tell it to you. But I have more to tell you, no doubt. But especially, well, oh no. You see, the reason why I say it like this is because I'm ashamed of some of the things I did. I'm ashamed of some of the friends I had. And you can't retrieve everything that happened to you. If it happened, it happened.
You're right, but I think you summarized that very well. You said you live and you learn.
You
So,
live, you learn. But learning is what you need. You gotta learn. Or you gotta pass it on. You gotta pass it on. And there will be times your children, down the line, they're gonna be going by in capsules, looking at the moon, looking at Mars. And you will say then, once we talked about this, and here it's happening. Well, you're going to ask me a question you should have asked me. But
what's that?
how many people did I kill? Well, what I'm going to say is always the truth. Working down in the ship and retrieving the stuff that was in the ships and packing into the ships, what we had was a job, it was a job. And it was something that you have to deal with. And I mean, they were, the business of sex, and some of the women killed in this thing called scramble. And there were times when the Army made a mistake, many, many times, and there were black guys who were charged with being black guys. Mhm. Anyhow, I had to write letters for them, and I would write letters to for these guys that couldn't read or write, and they would send the letters to their parents or friends, and they would never be read. In other words, they would say, this soldier, uh, Johnny Dixon, is guilty, and as so charged, it will be executed on the day herein published. And I would have to hurry up and get that letter to his congressman or preacher or whoever to get a letter to say something. This guy is not guilty. And the next thing you know, the day passed, and the soldier is hanged. Black soldiers, by the way, are hanged. White soldiers are executed. You see, that's the lingo, and it's true, because the white soldier is going to be knocked down by the bullets, but the black soldier is going to choke from the rope. So I'm saying he could have been saved maybe if his parents had been able to read and say, we got to take this to town and have it read by our lawyer or by our whoever owns this property, and say something to hold up for him. And they didn't do it because they couldn't read. And when they found out what the letter contained, all they could do was cry. So those things happen. But I mean, actually happen. See, I wrote letters for white guys and black guys, and while they were in prison, because at one point we were used as prison guards.